One of the biggest items on the agenda for the APEC leaders meeting is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP. Trade ministers from 11 Asia-Pacific economies have been there ahead with the deal without the United States. They've agreed on the core elements of the deal. A draft agreement outlines some of the provisions of the original deal that will be suspended. Ministers say further areas still need more technical input. Moving ahead with the TPP will boost multilateral trade agreements, especially after the US President Donald Trump reiterated his America First policy during his APEC address in Vietnam.
I think we've maintained a balance. We've avoided opting for lower standards. There are lots of areas where if you rush to agree, high standards will be sacrificed. But if you insist on high standards, it can take a long time or some countries might drop out. So all 11 countries are on board, and this will send a very strong message to the US and other countries in the region.
Well, let's get more details now from CGTN's Cheng Li, who is in Da Nang in Vietnam. What are the key highlights from the summit sessions?
Hey there, Karen. This is the last day of the 2017 APEC leaders meeting. If you hear some commotion behind me, that's because journalists are packing up after the concluding remarks by the Vietnamese president. Upstairs, though, we do have a press conference which should be very interesting, which is being hosted by the Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau. You should have heard the screaming and, the flashing cameras when he came in today. A lot of fans, but the big question is, what role did Canada play in terms of that delay in getting the TPP agreement out? Apparently there was a last-minute delay, and that's why instead of having a statement come out yesterday, which is what you just talked about, it came out in the early hours of today. So about 6 hours ago in this very international media center, that was where the statement was actually read out, that the 11 economies had agreed on the core elements, and instead of dropping the standard, they have cut out or dropped some provisions. So it is just as deep, but perhaps not as wide-ranging as TPP 12. And of course, they've renamed it, which is the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement on TPP. So aside from these press conferences, today we had the informal retreats at the Intercontinental Resort, attended by all the leaders. It was not open to press, but we know the subjects of those two retreats. One of them was innovative growth, inclusion and sustainable employment in the digital economy. Another one was new drivers for regional trade, investment and connectivity. And what we do know of Chinese President Xi Jinping's speech at the first retreat was calling for four big themes, and you pretty much know this already: innovation, openness, inclusiveness and partnerships. And the other thing that everyone was watching out for was the family photo, and whether the strongman leaders of the APEC economies, being Putin, Trump and Duterte, met each other. And yes, indeed they did meet, and of course it was all cordial, but does that mean anything for their engagement going forward? Probably not a great deal. So after this, I think a lot of leaders have either left or will be going home, and the journalists will be really digesting and analysing everything that's gone on thus far.
Okay, Cheng Li, and also let's talk about what the organisers are counting among its key achievements.
Well, obviously, at a meeting like this, you're not going to get, an instantaneous breakthrough. It is all just, lots and lots of small pieces of progress in very, very complex agreements. For example, I have right here, the joint ministerial statement. As you can see, I have a whole sheaf of paper, and this is all about how to deepen regional economic integration. Lots and lots of words, as you can see, internet and the digital economy. So I'll read you some highlights from the annex documents just to give you a flavor of what they're actually achieving, because to the outside world, events like this can all too much seem like, big empty talk fest. But this, Annex A, talking about cross-border e-commerce, that's very high up on the priority list because, get this, e-commerce is now 12% of the retail sales in the APEC region. That is more than anywhere else in the world. And also cross-border e-commerce is now one of the fastest growing segments in global trade. And so some of the exact measures they're going to implement include sharing policy best practices, moving to a system of paperless trading, so no more documents at customs and so on, and especially working on things like tax, intellectual property rights protection, and also consumer protection. So working to coordinate regulations on that to facilitate more cross-border e-commerce. And Annex B, we've got how to promote green, sustainable and innovative MSMEs, being micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. So basically all about how to help them with policies in the region. And we've got food security and climate change, because food security, now that we are urbanizing so fast, in fact I do have a figure here, 77% of the global population will be urbanized by 2050. That is only 33 years away. So where farmers go, how do you coordinate the rural urban populations and how food is produced? All that has to be planned for. So for now though, journalists are ready to pack up, and we are looking forward to a very interesting APEC 2018 in Papua New Guinea. Back to you, Karen.
Okay, Chang Li there in Da Nang at the closing of this year's APEC ceremony. Thank you very much.